imagine the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean as two really big bathtubs filled with water. These bathtubs are connected by a sort of doorway called the Panama Canal. However, even though they're connected, the water in each one of these tubs tends to stay specifically in its own bathtub rather than mixing together like some sort of big swirl. And there's a few reasons why this happens. There are density differences. The water in the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean have different densities. Density is how much stuff is packed into a certain space. Water in the Atlantic tends to be a bit saltier, and therefore denser than water in the Pacific, which is generally less salty. The difference in density makes it hard for the waters to mix smoothly. There's also temperature variations. The Atlantic and Pacific Oceans have different temperatures all the way across. The Atlantic tends to be warmer in some regions, while the Pacific might be cooler. Warmer water is lighter and tends to stay on top, while cooler water sinks below. This temperature difference helps keep the waters from mixing thoroughly. And there's also considerations of currents and circulation. Both oceans have their own circulation patterns and currents. These currents act like rivers inside the oceans, flowing in specific directions. These currents help keep the water somewhat separated, much like lanes on a highway keep cars moving in their own direction. And there's also geographical features of consideration. The shape and layout of the land and the seabed also play a really big role. There are underwater ridges and valleys that can influence the flow of water between these two oceans. These features act like barriers, preventing easy mixing of the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. So while the Atlantic and Pacific are connected, there are various factors like density, temperature, currents, and geography that keep them distinct from each other. They're like two neighbors who share a fence, but they keep to their own separate yards. These are Interesting Things with JC.